Hi, Rob Wakely, Chief of Bonner County EMS again with another instructional video on EMS for dispatch. I had a request for respirations, and in particular talking about the different kinds of respirations and what they mean. There's several different kinds, and first I'm going to talk about the things that are the most serious. I know you've heard the terms agonal respirations and gasping respirations, and for the purposes of EMS, regardless of what Webster says, we're going to call those two things kind of the same thing, whether the description is gasping respirations or agonal respirations. And agonal respirations are the noises, the audible lung sounds that someone makes, usually prior going into cardiac arrest. So it's a genuine life threat emergency when you hear agonal respirations, and it may sound a little bit different depending on the circumstances and the acoustics. So I found an example on the internet of a 911 call that definitely has agonal respirations or gasping respirations. So let's listen to that call real quick.
Would you say it's normal, sir? Would you say your chest is rising and falling normally?
Yeah. She did take a breath a little bit, but it is not really normal. It is not like regular breathing.
Okay.
I don't see much of an raising.
How old is she?
One jerky, kind of.
Okay, you can hear the agonal respirations in the background, and I'm gonna play it again, and I'm gonna indicate when those respirations are occurring.
Would you say it's normal, sir? Would you say your chest is rising and falling normally?
There's one.
She did take a breath a little bit, but it is not really normal. It is not like regular breathing.
Okay.
I don't see much of an raising.
That's number two.
How old is she?
One jerky.
There's three. And you notice one of the first things you notice about that is you couldn't tell whether he was saying it's happening regularly or irregularly, but based on what we're hearing, it's very irregular. There's a gasp. There's a very long period of time. I didn't time it, but it was probably 20 seconds, and then there were kind of two back to back. So agonal or gasping respirations are very irregular, and it really often is the final sounds that the body is going to make before cardiac arrest or technically death occurs. So it's not always going to sound exactly like that. It's going to be an unusual sound like a moan. And if you hear that in the background with someone that's unconscious, that probably is someone that's about to go into cardiac arrest. So you should be prepared to start giving CPR instructions when you hear that kind of breathing. Other kinds of breathing, let's talk a little bit about normal breathing. And someone that breathes 12 times a minute is breathing at an adult is probably breathing at a normal rate. I know there's a range, but let's just talk about 12 as being normal. And every breath, if the breath is a normal breath, they're going to take in a full breath for every breath, and the amount of breath that you take in is called tidal volume. It's the amount of air that you bring in, and it's for an adult it's between 5 and 800 cc's of air, and if you do that 12 times a minute and it's 500, then we're talking about 6,000 cubic centimeters of air every minute going into the body, and that's normal. Anything less than that is going to be classified as inadequate breathing, and there's several ways you can get to inadequate breathing. One is shallow breathing. If I breathe 12 times a minute, but I'm breathing shallow, I'm not filling my lungs up, no matter how many times I breathe, I'm probably not going to get to that 6,000 cubic centimeters of air in 1 minute. So I could be breathing far greater than 12 times a minute. I could be breathing 30 times a minute, 40 times a minute. And here's a little trick too. The faster you're breathing, the less likely it is that you're taking a full lung full of air. Because you think about it, if you're breathing really fast, there's not time to fill your lungs with air. So by definition, when people get over 30, over 40 times a minute, it's probably going to be inadequate. The other way for inadequate breathing, let's say I'm taking full breaths, but I'm only taking one breath every 10 seconds or so. That's 6 times a minute. So 500 cc's times 6 is only 3,000 per minute as opposed to 8,000. It's less than half the air I need to keep my systems going. So if someone is breathing far less than 12 times a minute, even though they may be taking full breaths, it's inadequate. And it's more a sign of a serious thing to have very slow respirations, particularly in an unconscious person, versus very quick respirations. Now, slow respirations we refer to as hypoventilation, and fast respirations we refer to as hyperventilation. You're breathing too fast. And one of the most common causes of hyperventilation, and I know I've talked about this in other videos, is a panic attack. Someone gets nervous, upset, your heart pounds, your pulse is fast, and your respirations become fast. And what happens to someone, the worst thing that could happen to someone that is hyperventilating due to a panic attack or due to psychological reasons is they'll pass out. And if they pass out, their body is going to return to a normal respiration rate and they're going to recover naturally. That said, there are more serious medical reasons for having quick respiration. So as a paramedic or as an EMT, we try never to assume that just because someone's hyperventilating, it absolutely is the panic attack. It's most commonly a panic attack, but it isn't always. One of there are some hallmarks of a panic attack is a true panic attack where the acute feeling of panic shouldn't last more than 10 minutes. If it's lasting more than 10 minutes and it's genuine panic, it's probably not a panic attack. The other thing that happens is extremities start to tingle and cramp, and that's because of a chemical shift in the body where there's really too much oxygen and not a correct balance of the waste product, carbon dioxide, and it creates a chemical shift in the extremities and it causes cramps and tingling. And again, that's something that's temporary that reverses itself once the respirations return to a normal rate and normal volume. So remember, gasping and agonal respirations are, once you hear them over the phone line, they're very unusual sounding. They may sound like moaning, or even it may sound like they're trying to say something, but it's irregular, it's strange sounding, and the person is almost always unconscious or semi-conscious, more likely unconscious. So I hope this helps in you understanding what to look for and what to listen for agonal respirations and inadequate breathing. I'll talk to you on the next video. Goodbye.